My childhood was happy. I felt loved. Life felt normal. But there were whispers. They followed me. People would stare. Their eyes lingered too long. I felt it. Something was different. Something was wrong. I didn't understand. Not yet. My parents' love was different. It was intense, all-consuming. They shared a connection, a bond that went beyond the usual. They understood each other. They finished each other's sentences. They knew what the other was thinking. It was almost eerie. But as a child, I thought it was special, unique. I never questioned their love. Why would I? It was all I knew. Was terribly wrong. As I entered adolescence, the whispers turned into hushed conversations. People would stop talking when I entered the room. My classmates would steal glances at me and then whisper behind their hands. I felt like an outsider, a freak, a social pariah. I tried to ignore it, tried to pretend that it didn't bother me, but it did. It ate away at me. I became withdrawn, isolated. I retreated into myself. I found solace in books and music, anything to escape the reality of my situation. I confronted my parents about it. I demanded to know what was going on. Why were people talking about us? What were they hiding? They denied everything. They told me that people were just jealous, that they were trying to hurt us. But their words rang hollow. I didn't believe them. I could see the guilt in their eyes. The more they denied it, the more determined I became to uncover the truth. I started to snoop around. I searched through old photo albums. I eavesdropped on their conversations. I was like a detective, desperately searching for clues. And then, one day, I found it. A small wooden box tucked away in the back of my father's closet. I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that whatever was inside that box held the key to my family's secret. I took a deep breath and opened it. Inside, I found a stack of old letters, yellowed with age, the ink faded. They were love letters, passionate, desperate love letters. But they weren't addressed to my mother. They were addressed to her brother, my uncle. The world seemed to spin around me. The room tilted. I felt sick, nauseous. My parents weren't just in love, they were brother and sister. The whispers were true, all of it. It was a truth more horrific than I could have ever imagined. The letters tumbled from my trembling hands, scattering across the floor like fallen leaves. Each one a testament to a love that was both beautiful and grotesque. I sank to my knees, the words swimming before my eyes. "My dearest brother," one began, the handwriting unmistakably my mother's. "My love for you knows no bounds." My stomach churned. This couldn't be true. I reread the words, each time the truth searing itself deeper into my consciousness. The dates on the letters spanned several years, starting long before I was born. They spoke of stolen moments, hidden desires, and a love that society deemed forbidden. Armed with the truth, I stormed downstairs, the letters clutched in my hand like a weapon. I found my parents in the living room, their heads bent together as they worked on a crossword puzzle. "What is this?" I asked, throwing the letters onto the coffee table. My parents froze, their eyes widening in horror. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My father simply closed his eyes and let out a long, weary sigh. "Kids," I spat, my voice thick with disgust. "You were writing love letters to each other while you were having an affair?" The truth was staring me in the face, and it was uglier than anything I could have imagined. The revelation hung in the air between us, a suffocating shroud of shame and betrayal. My parents, once pillars of strength and love, now seemed small and pathetic, their faces etched with guilt and fear. I wanted to scream, to rage, to unleash the torrent of emotions swirling within me. But all I felt was a bone-deep weariness. The truth had shattered my world, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty and pain. How could I ever look at my parents the same way again? How could I reconcile the love I had for them with the disgust and revulsion that now churned in my gut? The weight of their secret pressed down on me, threatening to crush me beneath its immense weight. I felt like a freak, an abomination, the product of a love that was both unnatural and wrong. Was I destined to carry the burden of their sin? Was I doomed to repeat their mistakes? The questions swirled in my mind, tormenting me with their relentless assault. There were no easy answers, no comforting platitudes to soothe the raw ache in my heart. I was alone, adrift in a sea of uncertainty and pain, with no compass to guide me and no shore in sight. The days that followed were a blur of numbness and despair. I withdrew from my friends, my family, my life. The world outside seemed too bright, too loud, too full of life. I couldn't bear to face the pitying stares, the hushed whispers, the unspoken judgment that I knew awaited me. I retreated into myself, seeking solace in solitude and silence. My once favorite activities held no appeal. Food tasted like ash in my mouth. Sleep offered no escape from the nightmares that plagued me. The world had shrunk to the confines of my room, a prison of my own making. My parents tried to reach out, to explain, to apologize, but their words felt empty, meaningless. The damage had been done. The trust was broken. How could I ever forgive them for the burden they had placed on my shoulders? How could I ever forget the truth that had shattered my world? I was lost, adrift in a sea of pain and confusion, with no anchor to hold me steady and no light to guide my way. The future stretched before me, bleak and uncertain. How could I ever hope to build a life, a family, a future, on such a foundation of lies and deceit? School became unbearable. The whispers followed me down the hallways. They echoed in the cafeteria. They seeped into my dreams. I was no longer just a student. I was the product of incest, a freak show attraction, a cautionary tale. My classmates, once my friends, now kept their distance. They exchanged knowing glances. Their laughter felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I was alone in a sea of faces, surrounded by people, yet utterly isolated. The teachers, once supportive and encouraging, now treated me differently. Their smiles felt forced. Their words lacked warmth. I was a problem to be managed, a burden to be borne. Their pity was almost worse than the scorn of my peers. I stopped going to classes. What was the point? I couldn't concentrate, couldn't focus. My mind was a battlefield of conflicting emotions: shame, anger, betrayal, despair. I was drowning in a sea of my own making. Our extended family, once a source of comfort and support, fractured under the weight of our secret. My grandparents, their faces etched with a lifetime of pain, refused to acknowledge my existence. My aunts and uncles, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and disgust, kept their distance. Family gatherings, once filled with laughter and love, became strained affairs. The air crackled with unspoken tension. Conversations were stilted. Smiles were forced. I was a ghost at my own family's feast, a constant reminder of their shame. My cousins, once my closest confidants, now treated me like a pariah. They avoided my gaze, whispered behind my back. I was a threat to their carefully constructed world, a reminder that even the most perfect families could harbor dark secrets. I became a symbol of their collective sin, a living, breathing embodiment of their worst fears. They couldn't escape me, couldn't erase me. I was a constant reminder of their own mortality, their own capacity for darkness. shame. It became my constant companion, a shadow that followed me everywhere. It whispered in my ear, reminded me of my parents' sin, told me I was tainted, damaged, unworthy of love. I felt like damaged goods, broken beyond repair. How could I ever explain this to anyone? Who would ever understand? Who could ever accept me, knowing the truth about my family? The shame manifested itself in unexpected ways. I became withdrawn, afraid of intimacy, terrified of rejection. Every relationship felt like a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode when the truth came out. I pushed people away, built walls around my heart, convinced myself that I was better off alone. Love was a luxury I couldn't afford, not with this secret hanging over my head. I loved my parents. I really did. They were the only parents I knew. They had showered me with love and affection, protected me from a world that seemed determined to tear us apart. But the revelation of their secret changed everything. Love became intertwined with revulsion, affection with disgust. How could they have done this? How could they have brought me into the world under such a dark cloud? I struggled to reconcile these conflicting emotions. The love I had always felt for them warred with the anger, the betrayal, the sheer disgust that now bubbled up inside me. I wanted to hate them, to blame them for everything, for the shame, for the isolation, for the feeling that I was somehow complicit in their sin. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Acceptance didn't come easy. It was a long and arduous journey, a constant battle between the life I had known and the reality I now faced. The shame, the guilt, the anger, they lingered like ghosts, threatening to drag me back into the darkness. I sought therapy, talking to a stranger, someone detached from the tangled web of my family history, helped. It allowed me to voice the thoughts I had kept bottled up for so long, to dissect the complex emotions that had taken root within me. My therapist listened without judgment. She offered guidance, not solutions. She helped me to see that I was not responsible for my parents' actions, that their choices did not define me. Slowly, Gradually, I began to embrace the shadows of my past. Not to condone them, but to acknowledge their existence. To accept that they were a part of my story, even if they were not the sum of it. Rebuilding my life felt like an impossible task. The foundation upon which I had built my identity was shattered. I had to start over, to find new ground on which to stand. I moved away from my hometown, needed distance, a fresh start. I cut off contact with my parents. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, but it was necessary. I needed space to heal, to figure out who I was without them. I focused on myself, my education, my career. I poured myself into my work, found solace in the structure, the routine, the sense of accomplishment it provided. I made new friends, people who knew nothing of my past, people who accepted me for who I was in the present. Their friendship, their unconditional love, was a lifeline, a reminder that I was worthy of connection. For years, I lived in silence, ashamed of my family's secret, terrified of the judgment I might face if I ever dared to speak my truth. But silence is a heavy burden to carry. It festers, it breeds resentment, it eats away at you from the inside out. I realized that my story, as painful as it was, could help others. That by sharing my experiences, I might be able to ease the burden for someone else carrying the same secret. I started small. Joined an online support group for people born from incestuous relationships. The anonymity felt safe. It allowed me to connect with others who understood my pain, to share my story without fear of judgment. The more I shared, the more empowered I felt. I realized that my voice mattered, that my experiences had value, that even in the darkest of places there was always hope. Forgiving my parents was the hardest part of my journey. How could I ever forgive them for the pain they had caused, for the life they had denied me? But I knew that holding on to anger, to resentment, was only hurting myself. It was a poison that was slowly eating away at me. I needed to let go. Forgiveness wasn't about them. It was about me. It was about releasing myself from the shackles of the past, about reclaiming my life, about choosing happiness. It didn't happen overnight. It was a process, a conscious decision to let go of the anger, the bitterness, the resentment, to choose love over hate, hope over despair. Forgiving my parents didn't excuse their actions, but it freed me from the burden of their past. It allowed me to move forward with my life. My life has been anything but ordinary. It's a tapestry woven with threads of love and loss, joy and pain, shame and acceptance. The scars of my past are a part of me. They tell a story, my story, but they do not define me. I am not my parents' sin. I am not their secret. I am a survivor. I am resilient. I am strong. I have learned to embrace the complexities of life, to find beauty in unexpected places, to love fiercely and forgive freely. My journey has taught me that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, that love can bloom in the most unlikely of places, that forgiveness, while difficult, is the key to true freedom. I am not defined by my past. I am defined by my resilience, by my capacity for love, by my unwavering belief in the power of hope. I am a survivor, and this is my story.